Hey ladies and gentlemen, it is me Zero speaking, and welcome to part 2 of Let's Play Night Watcher. I would first like to thank you who have shared your opinions with me and gave me detailed feedback. I really appreciate them. Also, some people told me that I sound like someone who's giving a lecture. I'm usually very quiet, you know, but for the sake of entertainment, I should not sound like a professor who puts you asleep in 10 seconds, right? So I'm gonna try to speak as lively as possible with more confidence. I promise I'll try my best to improve myself and give you the best I have got. And before we talk about Night Watcher, I'd like to give you a few updates on my schedule. I'm currently working on Reckless Challenge Part 9 and also on FNTC Wind Sneaker version. I originally had all the necessary videos ready for Wind Sneaker's FNTC, but I lost all the data. The data were in my old laptop and my laptop broke down about a month ago. I called in a technician to retrieve the data, but I was told that the hard drive was damaged so severely that he could not retrieve a single byte of data out of the hard drive. So I have recently finished recording new gameplays and they are waiting to be edited. So sooner or later you will see those videos, and of course they will have subtitles, not my voice over them. Well then, let's talk about Night Watcher now. Also, one additional thing, I'm going to be showing you spots where I use Phoenix Strike. I originally planned to do this by starting a new series of videos called FNTM, which stands for From Newbie to MVP, but these data I collected were also in the old hard drive, which is gone by now. So I will probably continue the series later in the future, but for now I will show you the spots here with Night Watcher. And you can watch this video as the reference and learn where to use Phoenix Strike. If you aren't sure about where the spots are, don't hesitate, just ask me. I'm always here for you guys. When you follow along your epic quest or story quest, you come to Altera and visit this field. However, it looks like a number of people miss out on this platform, which is the highest place in this field. Every field has a place like this where there are no mobs at all and you can enjoy the scenery. In some fields, it is easy to spot those places, but in some fields like this one, it is not as visible. So, when you're playing the game and your mom says, "Dinner's ready," you can place your character here, go have some food with your family, and come back. And I think I should have mentioned this in the previous episode, but since I didn't, I will mention it here. It's about the skill Evoke. If Evoke does not touch any enemies, it will stay still for a few seconds and automatically explode. There's another way you can make this explode, and that is to do it by yourself. You can attack it with your arrow, foot, or Erendil and manually cause its explosion. It looks like the developers wanted this skill to be used somewhat strategically, probably in PvP, but I personally don't think it serves that purpose. I mean, this is not an active skill, it's a special active that requires 100 MPs, and in most cases, there will be many other factors that will condition your gameplay. Maybe it is useful for some professional players, but for me, I just don't see how this could be useful. And when you reach level 25, you get to learn Fatality. Woohoo! When someone tells you, "Hey, I played Night Watcher," the very first thing that comes up in your mind is probably Fatality. You can say this is what represents Night Watcher. Some Koreans call this skill a lottery because this skill has 3 different chances of damaging your opponents. One is called fatal damage, and this is why people refer to this skill as lottery. If this can damage your enemy with a fatal hit, and if that hit is a critical hit, this skill makes your day. You go like, "Oh god, this is exactly what makes me play as Night Watcher." The only downside of this skill, despite its high damage percentage, is that this skill is a physical attack. Rena's magical attack is significantly higher than her physical attack. So if you convert the physical damage percentage into magical damage percentage, it is not that super strong. But still, it does good amount of damage, good enough to make your day. Another kind of damage is normal damage, and it does decent amount of damage as a skill that requires 200 MPs. The other one is called weak damage, and when this chance procs, you instantly feel like I have just wasted 200 MPs. This quote-unquote lottery skill is what gives Night Watcher a unique feature and fun. But at the same time, it is what makes Night Watcher hard to play because unlike any other skills, this skill creates variation in your gameplay and things don't always go as you previously planned. Also, this skill does not grant invincibility to your character while you are using it. At the end of this episode, I will show you that you cannot dodge attacks from enemies by using Fatality. My reaction to this? Simple. What were they thinking? Shouldn't we at least have some invincibility until we complete the thrusting motion? Like, come on developers, why you do this to Night Watcher? We should buff her little. And one last thing about Fatality, in Korean version, they originally had Rena's voice for Fatality that goes Fatality! But for some unknown reason, they did not include it in the game. She just says heya, and that is all. I don't know the reason why they decided to do so. I personally think that the voice sounds just fine, but oh well. The last thing to talk about in this episode is Altera Core. A lot of people hate this dungeon, right? I know. How much do they hate it? Let me explain it in a way that you can understand this. When I play Elsword, it is usually when most Korean people are sleeping. You know, the time difference between the US and South Korea. For other dungeons, when I do the random match, people will still play even if there are only 2 people in a party. But for this dungeon, if it turns out that there are only 2 people for Altera Core, they would choose not to play this dungeon. That's how much they hate it. The primary reason why people hate it so much, besides the length of the dungeon and difficulty, is the presence of these lasers. You would occasionally encounter these lasers in this dungeon, and there are 3 kinds of them. Blue laser, red laser, and the most noxious one, green laser. Blue laser does some damage to you. It doesn't hurt that much, but it just makes you feel bad. The red laser doesn't hurt you, not at all, but it summons mobs, usually about 3. The most noxious one, the green laser, does damage and summons mobs. So if you want to reduce your clear time, you might want to avoid touching those red and green lasers. Most people usually get enraged by others who touch the lasers. I want you to be good-mannered players. Don't get mad, don't get stressed out, guys. It is just a game. Be generous to others. And when you touch the laser, I suggest you at least say sorry once. If you do so, a lot of people will not say any bad things about you. I have this one funny story in this dungeon. I once played this dungeon as a party of 4 members, and there was this red-haired Elsword who just could not control his rage towards others for touching the lasers. He just couldn't stand it. So he was spending a fair amount of time swearing at others, of course in Korean. But the funny thing is, after he said those bad words, it didn't even take 10 seconds for him to touch 2 lasers that summon monsters. When I saw that, I just burst into laughter. I hope this doesn't happen to you guys. Be good to others. Be good to others, ladies and gentlemen. And here's another tip for you. You sometimes get to see those mobs with shields, and their guard can sometimes be very annoying. And let me explain to you how you can cancel their guarding motion, besides the most obvious way, which is to attack from the back. That is, you can cancel this motion by attacking from their front. Get as close to them as possible, jump, and press Z. If you are playing as Elsword or Raven, you can also use this trick. This jump Z trick does not work on other shield mobs or other characters in PvP. In other words, this trick is exclusive to this shield mob in Altera. For Ara, you don't have to jump at all, you just have to press Z 3 times and you will be able to easily cancel their guarding motion. And the last thing about Altera Core. There's this title called Supersonic. You discover this title by clearing this dungeon once, and you obtain this title by clearing this dungeon within 8 minutes. People most often fail to obtain this title because they touch too many of the lasers that summon mobs. However, if there is a Rena player who knows where to use Phoenix Strike, 8 minutes is nothing. In this playthrough, we touched lasers many times, but still made it in 8 minutes. If I remember correctly, the clear time was 7 minutes and 46 seconds. This title for a low-level player is quite useful because it gives you 2% action speed. But for beginners, since this dungeon is quite long, it could be a little hard for them to remember all the spots where Phoenix Strike becomes useful. So, here's another good tip for you. You don't have to memorize every single spot. You don't have to. The rule of thumb is to remember this. On the bottom right corner, there is a minimap that shows the number of mobs that are alive in the current room you're in. As soon as the wall that blocks you from entering the next room breaks, look at the number of mobs present. If the number is 6 or more, go ahead and use Phoenix Strike. But there's one thing that you should keep in mind when you are using Phoenix Strike. Get as close as possible to the first mob in that room and then use Phoenix Strike. There are two reasons for this. One, the Phoenix does not travel that far. I mean, it does travel far compared to other skills, but not as far as you might expect it to travel. 2. When you use Phoenix Strike, it starts off a little high and then it descends a little. In other words, it goes down a little in terms of the height. Because of this, there are cases when the Phoenix fails to hit mobs that are on platforms. So you should keep in mind that you should get as close as possible to the first mob in the room and then use Phoenix Strike. This rule of thumb is exclusive to this dungeon. In other words, do not use this rule of thumb in other dungeons. Whether to use Phoenix Strike or not heavily depends on landscape and location of mobs in a room. So if you feel like it is too hard for you to remember Phoenix Strike spots in Altera Core, use this rule of thumb. But in other dungeons, you should not use this rule of thumb, you just have to memorize the spots. Nowadays, a lot of people don't even glance at this skill, but I believe that it is pretty useful if you know where to use it. And unless you're kind of competing with other Renas or Eves, it is almost guaranteed that you will be nominated as MVP or most valued player during that run. If you are into getting more experience points, here you go. Learn Phoenix Strike and get the best out of it. And I think that's all for today. In the next episode, I will probably take on bosses in Fata and do some quests to become Night Watcher. I will try my best to get every single tip off of my head and give it to you. I promise I will try my best to improve myself and give you the best I've got. I promise. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this video, leave comments in the comment section below. I'm not asking you to leave comments. I'm not. I'm not going to ask you to press the like button, leave comments, or subscribe to my channel. I am never going to do that. It is completely up to your choice. What makes me happy is you enjoying my videos. I mean, I do appreciate you guys if you press the like button or subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate those. But what I truly want is to make you entertained with my videos. Also, if you have any questions or concerns that are not related to this video, or if you have any video requests, please post your comments on my channel. If you do not follow this, you may be blocked without warning, and it kinda hurts my feeling when I have to block you from my channel. So I know I'm being a little picky, but please cooperate with my policies. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this episode. I hope you all have a great day. Be well, my friends. I will see you in the next episode. Ciao!